All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well and staying healthy. This is the first, I'm recording, that's why I got so formal. This is the first virtual sales meeting for the West Cobb branch of Maximum One. So hello, everybody. Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Janine or Becky, do y'all want to start off with any opening words?
She's on mute.
Becky's on mute. She's trying.
Sorry, I'm mute button gets up. Janine, if you have anything you want to say, go ahead. Really, I was just going to focus. We had talked yesterday, Dana, Janine, and I, about putting the focus on, honestly, Jay and Amee with any information they have. Amee for closings. I think a lot of us have seen virtual closing options that are available. Jay, big questions on lender locks, interest rates, how soon you can lock, how this is really affecting us. And I think that, you know, Janine, you pop in here if you have a different opinion, but I think we're just going to let you guys steer the meeting, give us all the information, especially with abbreviated time. We can just get this questions answered.
Okay. Hi,
Jay,
Amee.
do you want to? Hey, Jay, how are you? Do you want to go ahead and start on your side? Good.
All right, Jay, I'm going to make you host so you can share your screen.
Okay. Well, cool.
So hang on one second.
See what we got
Make
here.
host. All right.
All right, guys. So, yeah, obviously in a little bit different world today versus last sales meeting, right? A lot of changes and stuff like that. Real quick, guys, just some highlights. I've got a real good friend of mine that does research like in the medical field down in Miami. So I've been talking with him and getting a bunch of things. A couple of things real quick about the COVID-19 coronavirus. I think we all know high-risk people are people with diabetes, overweight. Something's real crazy, though. If you or anyone you know takes blood pressure medication, it's not high blood pressure itself. It's the medication that has ACE inhibitors in it. That seems to be a major, major problem with people having really bad symptoms if they're on ACE inhibitor blood pressure medication. So if you or family members or stuff like that may want to talk to their doctor about changing that up, at least during this time. The other thing that I thought was really interesting talking with people is guys too, but especially ladies, your hair. They say that this virus really stays and grows in people's hair for a long period of time. So when you go out in public with your back, be sure to wash your hair, especially women. Got a dog barking in the background. Especially women, sometimes, you know, we set it up. My wife likes to wash her hair every 2 or 3 or 4 days or something like that. So just some basic health notes right there. Also, be sure to stay away from Tylenol and Advil, acetaminophen, and ibuprofen. Use aspirin if you can, if that works for you for minor aches and pains. Just some things like that. Just some good information I thought would be good for everybody to pass along. So, so the meat of the conversation here, loan programs. First thing to know is that anything that's been more of, so I'll tell you what, before we break down all the different rules, let's talk about what's happening in the market that's causing all the changes, okay? You know, the classic statement, the government says, okay, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. They've obviously tried to help the mortgage business, buying the mortgage-backed securities, all the different things that they're doing. But the thing that's absolutely destroying our business and everything right now is this whole forbearance issue. And you've probably seen that on the news. People can call and defer up to 12 months of mortgage payments. I think it's like 3 months at a time. But they said that we've got some data. They said that they've crashed Bank of America and Wells Fargo's 800 numbers, people calling in trying to reduce or get rid of their mortgage payment. A couple things to know about that we've got to help educate the populace on, because it's not in the news right now. First of all, it is a forbearance, which means if the payment's not forgiven, it's just technically the way a mortgage forbearance works in the paperwork is if the customer skips, say, 3 months of payments or skip 6 months of payments, as soon as they come out of that forbearance, they're supposed to have, as soon as they come out, all 6 or all 3 or all 12 or whatever it is payments are due in full the day they come out. So you don't skip it. Those payments are all due as soon as they're out of the forbearance. Now, most servicers are probably going to set up a plan where they can pay like an extra $100 or $80 a month or whatever. And by doing that, they'll, you know, not have to feel the full brunt of that, but it's not free monthly payments. And there's just a big misunderstanding about that in the marketplace. And there's a bunch of people applying for this forbearance that probably don't need it. It really needs to be a last ditch effort. The reason that's a big deal is because even though the government is telling the consumers that they don't have to worry about making the mortgage payment, they haven't bridged the gap yet between the servicer that collects the payment and the end investor who's receiving the interest on these mortgages. Okay. And the reason that's a big deal is because you may not know this or may not know this, but the servicer, the person who's actually receiving the mortgage payments, they are responsible for paying the investor the interest on those mortgages, whether they've received the payment or not from the consumer. Okay. And when they have a whole bunch of mortgages, that's not that big a deal. They have reserves in case people miss a payment. That's the whole point of their job. They're the servicer and they guarantee the investor the interest. But if all of a sudden half of your book of business or 25% of your book of business is now going into forbearance, no one has reserves on the servicing side to set up for that. And then there's a general concern in mortgage quality right now. I mean, you know, if you pay attention to the numbers, what we had 6.6 million people file for unemployment last week. So there's a genuine concern that mortgages may not perform as well as they should anyway. And now we're telling people in the news every day that they can skip mortgage payments. So what that's done is it's really made mortgages, at least for a temporary period of time, much riskier than we would normally think they are. We're thinking there's going to be a whole lot of missed payments, a whole bunch of problems. And so what we're having or what we're experiencing right now in the mortgage business is a flight to quality, meaning that any of the higher risk, kind of the boutique, random loan programs that we were seeing and were starting to come online, those have all either shut down or gone away or gotten so expensive it doesn't make sense to close them. So any of your kind of anything down to 580 has gone away. At Homestar, we went to a 620 last week minimum credit score across all of our government stuff. We're seeing that across the industry. There's a bunch of lenders that I think have gone to 660 and 680 minimums for the time being. And what that is guys, the servicers, they don't want to buy any loans at all where the customer may miss a payment because they're already concerned about not collecting payments on the loans they already have. Makes sense? So they're really tightening up the rules because they can't have loans where people miss payments. So the other thing we're seeing is all of the like manufactured housing loans. Those are basically gone if you have any of those or have a manufactured home listing. The jumbo market is starting to evaporate. We're not seeing a whole lot of loans or a whole lot of opportunity for people trying to borrow more than $510,000, the conforming loan limit. All the non-QM stuff that I'm aware of has temporarily shut down, all the bank statement loans, things like that. And even if you pay attention, some of the 100% financing like Georgia Dream is still out there, but I mean, I'm quoting a 3.5% interest rate right now on FHA loans. Georgia Dream's at 4.625. So that's a common theme we're seeing as well. If the program is still out there and available, we're typically seeing interest rates that are much higher for those programs than it would be for more of a standard loan, like a 3.5% down FHA loan or a 5% down conventional loan. So just heads up on that. Like I said, it's totally to do with a flight to quality. If the government can fix the issue with the servicers getting the interest and the money to pay the investors, I think that will help alleviate some of these problems. But it's wrecked the industry so hard. I've heard some people that I subscribe to and pay attention to their information. They're saying that at the end of all of this, the mortgage business may look entirely different, when a few months from now than what it looks like now. It's just as far as how we do loan programs and everything, kind of similar to how the industry looked different and changed after the 08, 09 financial meltdown. Okay. So just heads up on that. Like I said, we'll try to keep everybody updated and send out emails and stuff like that as things change. A couple of things I want to just kind of wave the banner of Homestar real quick, guys. So I've seen stories on the Facebook page for Maximum One, heard stories from other real estate agents I do business with, people who were basically under contract, approved, in some cases clear to close, and then those files not closing, lenders, pulling the rug out from under borrowers and saying, hey, we're sorry, there's no market for this. We can't close loans that aren't profitable. We're not doing these loans right now. So what we did at Homestar, when we went to our 620 meeting, we actually had a company-wide meeting on Thursday, and it gave loan officers time to call all of our customers and all of our agents for customers who are in that 580 to 620 bucket. We gave them the weekend and the Monday to find a house, write a contract, get a home under contract. If they had a home under contract and we were able to lock the file owner before April 1st, we're honoring all those loans between 580 and 620. Okay, so we're still fulfilling that, fulfilling those obligations to our customers. We feel like that's the right thing to do. And so if we do go to a 640 or 660 minimum temporarily, I'm sure we'll do it the same way and still have those same conversations and phone calls. Okay, so I want y'all to feel comfortable about that, at least with Homestar. Obviously, I can't speak for other lenders, but that's, I spoke to Wes Hunt, he's our owner, and he's just like, we might have to close these loans at a loss, but we feel like it's the right way to service our clients and our, our referral partners. So just heads up on that. The other thing to know about business in general right now is that obviously employment verifications, income documentation is it's always a big deal, but it's a much bigger deal right now than it has been in a long time. So we're always re-verifying customers' employment. We do that on every file, but now we're always calling the day of closing to make sure the customer still has a job. We're asking for a recent pay stub or an updated pay stub as soon as we get our clear to close, because we want to make sure the income we've approved the customer on is the same income they're going to receive. A great example, I spoke to a guy yesterday who's a pilot for Delta, makes good money, potentially looking to downsize because he's worried he's not going to be making as much money, at least for a fairly decent period of time here. But his W-2s are not going to match with what his pay stubs are going to say for, say, last week or last couple of weeks, right? Because flights are canceled and he's not flying as much. So we're really trying to keep an eye on that. We're also asking lots and lots of questions about things like bonus income, overtime income. Even if people have a job, we understand they may be, not working as many hours. I have one customer who had to take a 15% pay cut to keep his job. So it's, it's not normal. Wages, generally speaking, are pretty sticky, meaning if someone gets a raise and they make $65,000 now instead of 60, it's very rare for a company to reduce their pay. But we're seeing a lot of that right now. So, just if you get wind of that or hear about that, if you can go ahead and let me or let your loan officer know, hey, I just heard so-and-so is not working as many hours. It may be a waste. A lot of this stuff, we can flesh out these problems and figure it out up front before, we get to the closing table and find out we've got a problem or have an issue, the day of closing. The other thing that I need to cover real quick is if you're on your listings, if you're not seeing this, you will see it. If you have buyers who are making offers, your lenders should be asking you for this. If they're not, you need to ask the question. We're going to see the request for seller paid closing costs go up. Okay. So, and to understand this, let's go back to, the flight to quality and what investors and servicers are seeing and what they're concerned with. Remember, as a mortgage company, we make money on loan files in two places. We either make money on the interest rate or we make money on the closing cost, right? Well, right now, with genuine concerns about people losing their jobs, the economy going down, investors are basically saying that we want to make sure we are making more of our money up front versus charging the customer a slightly higher interest rate and making money over the life of the loan, the 5 or 6 or 10 years on average that a 30-year mortgage actually lasts before it pays off. So what we're seeing is, we have really good interest rates. We're closing customers. I just locked a customer yesterday at 3.25% on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, but that loan came with, I think, a minimum of, I want to say it was like 1.5 points, and it was a good credit score customer. A point, just so you know, on a $200,000 loan, 1 point is $2,000 in closing cost. Normally, when lenders quote rates, or at least when I quote rate, normally we're quoting what we call a par interest rate, meaning there's no extra fees or extra points, but there's also no lender credit or lender credit to offset any other closing costs. there's really no opportunity right now. There is no lender credit available on any rate at anything in the market. So what investors are saying is, we don't care if this customer pays us back 3.5% interest or 6% interest. We still want to make a point or $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever it is up front. They want to guarantee some profit up front. They don't want to make their profit in interest over the life of the loan right this second. Okay. So you're going to see the request for seller paid closing costs go up on your listings. You might want to go ahead and let your sellers know, hey, you know, they're not trying to make a lowball offer. If they're doing it right, they're probably going to ask for a lot of closing costs. I've had to go back with some of my customers and have them renegotiate for more closing costs for customers who are already under contract. I was talking with my branch manager yesterday, and he had it was a new construction deal, and we still obviously go down to a 620. Their preferred lender only goes down to a 640. But to close a 620 customer right now, I mean, it's expensive. It's going to require some closing costs. And they were like, oh, well, you can have the loan, but we're not going to pay any closing costs. The builder said that, and we were like, well, why bother? You know, just don't write the contract. It's a waste of time, because the customer's not going to have their 3.5% or 5% down plus, you know, 10 grand or 12 grand in closing costs a lot of times, which is what we'll need on some of these transactions. So like I said, those are the biggest things that we're seeing. Seller paid closing costs are going to go up. As far as rate locks go, we are seeing people protected if their interest rate is locked versus if they're not locked for some of the loan programs and changes that we're seeing. Generally speaking, you can lock in an interest rate up to 60 days outside of your closing. But to lock a rate right now, you're going to need a property address with a sales contract. Okay. So 60 days is the number that we're seeing that we can lock, usually the time period that we can lock for. Obviously, we can always lock a customer in for 45 or 30 or 15 days, but that's about the maximum lock period I'm seeing right now. Most lenders, most investors don't want to take on any more risk than that. And then a couple other things. So I guess before I move on to the next piece, if y'all have the chat pulled up, anybody have any questions or anything we need to cover from all that? I'm used to people being able to raise their hand or see it, and it's hard to keep up with it on the screen. We good right now? So I'm gonna try to share a screen real quick. Let's see how this works. All right. All right. Can everybody see that? It should look like a bunch of green and red, and we call them candles. I see people shaking their heads. We're muted, but I think we're good. So I'm assuming y'all can see this. So what this is, guys, is this is a representation of mortgage bond pricing. Our mortgage rates are based off mortgage bonds, this pricing that we see right here. If you into trading or know anything about stock markets, each little piece right here is called a candle because it kind of looks like a candle. You have wicks on either side of it. A green candle means pricing went up and closed higher for the day. A red candle means pricing started here and went down, closed down for the day. Generally speaking, pricing going up right here means lower interest rates, okay? So higher prices are lower interest rates, and lower prices down here would be higher interest rates, okay? All these crazy big candles, all this swing that we're seeing in the market, this all started when the Fed announced they were buying mortgage-backed securities. I don't know if you can see the date down at the bottom. It's hard to see. This started about mid-March, okay? Prior to then, like this candle right here, this was a huge movement in one day. I mean, like a big, big deal. These movements are big movements in the mortgage market. And then when the Fed stepped in and all the craziness started happening, we had these unbelievably huge swings, highly volatile conditions in our mortgage market. If you look at, say, this candle right here, the market opened up here, it closed down here, so we didn't have a real big movement. But at one point, pricing was all the way up here, and at one point, pricing was all the way down here. We went from about a 3.75 interest rate to a 5.5% interest rate in one day with the volatility that we saw in the market. That is an astronomical amount of movement in one day. So this all goes to say, now we've been a little bit more stable the last few days, which has been wonderful. It's been something the mortgage market has needed to settle down. but just be prepared. This type of volatility, I was having conversations with customers where their rate was literally changing every hour. Like I would call them up and say, hey, do you want to lock in? The market's moving. They would call me back an hour later and say, yeah, I want to lock in. Well, then their rate had changed. And when I told them the new rate, they would want to talk about it, and they call me back 30 minutes later and their rate had changed again. So hopefully we're stable now and we won't see that. But if you heard people complain about that, or you heard stories about that, it absolutely was true. And you don't have to have mortgage bond pricing to see this. If you see the stock market, like today, stocks are up like 800 points. They open up the market 800 points. You know, back before all this, it was a big movement for stocks to change, what, 100 points in a day. So we're just really busy, a lot of volatility in the market. And when you have this much volatility, it creates what we call a scare premium in pricing. With the market up here, interest rates should probably be about 2.75 on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. We're quoting closer to 3.2 to 3.5. And it's because of the volatility, there's concerns that one wrong move by the government, one head fake, one glitch, and pricing is going to jump right back down. And now we have these loans we have to honor at these low rates that we can't honor because the market's changed on us so fast. So just that's a dynamic that's happening in the marketplace. Just heads up is something good to know. The other thing I wanted to show real quick, let me see if I can share this screen and then I will be done. Let's see here. Can everybody see this chart? Should have like a red arrow going up to the right. So this chart, guys, and I've been sending this out as a text message to a bunch of agents I do business with. There's a question that I think a lot of people are getting asked right now. You're probably getting asked as a real estate agent. There are people saying, should I go out and buy a house? Should I list my house in this market, right? And there's some people that it's not an option. Like the Delta pilot I was talking to, he's genuinely concerned that his income is going to be down for a long period of time, and he might be entering the market to sell his home, whether he wants to sell it or not, right? So unfortunately, you're going to have some of those opportunities probably in the market we're in right now. But what this chart is, and this is something I'm showing everybody, this is this blue line that's kind of wavy and goes up and comes down a little bit. This is the Case-Shiller National Housing Price Index going all the way back to about 1973, okay? And these gray areas are recessions that have taken place throughout those years, okay? Now, everybody remembers the recession that started back, what, about 2008, the financial meltdown and all that. And there's this thought process that I'm seeing in the market where everybody's saying, oh, we're probably in a recession or about to go into a recession, so home prices are going to go down, so I don't want to buy a house right now. I'm going to wait till prices get cheaper, right? It makes sense. But if you look at the chart across pretty much every recession we've ever had, home prices have held very steady, maybe gone down a little bit. In some cases, home prices went up. The dot-com bust right here, 2001, home prices actually went up during that recession, okay? The biggest one, the most recent one where home prices came down was the most recent recession, 08, 09. And that's because the housing market itself was the reason for the recession, right? It was all the crazy loans, the 100% no doc loans that we were doing, or that, not we, I'd say mortgage companies in general were doing, that helped create this bubble and caused housing prices to go down. Fundamentally, guys, and you probably saw this before coronavirus and everything hit our market, the housing market was extremely strong. Okay, I had more volume in January, February, lined up for March than I had, last 2 or 3 years during those same months. And I imagine, Dana, you probably saw some of the same numbers across the board with Maximum One with the sales numbers that you see. As far as home prices go, there's different multiples we look at. We look at percentages of what homes sell for versus the cost of materials to build it. We look at rent multipliers, things like, okay, the average rent in the area is a certain number. The average home is typically about 16 times of that rent cost. We call that the rent multiplier. Back in 07, 08, those numbers had gotten completely out of whack. The rent multiplier was running about 22. So the average house price was about 22 times the average rent in the area. Historically, that number is typically about 16. Right now in today's market, we're about 16.3. Okay. The cost to build a home for the materials, it typically, it runs about 1.6. So the multiplier is 1.6 of the cost to build a home versus the price of a home, what it sells for. Back in 08, that number had gotten up to 2.2. Okay. Right now in our market, right now, we're running about 1.68, right in line with where we typically are. So there's nothing in this market. The key here is that the housing market is fundamentally different now than it was back in 08. I don't really foresee a scenario where home prices drop or drop very dramatically in a short period of time. The other thing I'll tell you is, there's a whole bunch of people at home with nothing to do. I think now's the best time to tell a customer to list a house. Get it online, get some really good pictures out there. People are going to see it. They'll look at it online. And then when we're allowed to get out and go out and visit, then they can go out and look at this house that they were interested in, that they saw and been looking at for the last 2 or 3 weeks when they've been holed up in their house. So I would say, right now is the time where it's really time to separate and market and make some things happen, because I think there's a really good opportunity for that. So anyway, I'm happy to send text out or send out any of these pictures if you want to share it with any buyers or potential sellers. Like I said, I know we've gotten some good feedback from it, good feedback from some of the agents I do business with. And I'm looking at the chat here, don't see any questions. So I guess we're good there. Certainly if you have any questions, let me know and I can turn it over back to, I guess, Amy or Becky or whoever wants to go next. And Dana, you're muted. I see you talking.
Yeah, I can't. Dana, are you muted still?
Okay, thank you so much, Jay. That was great information. And I think the overall thing that we can take from that is everybody just needs to kind of catch their breath a little bit. We're not in a major topsy-turvy, just a temporary one. And the other thing, like you said, Jay, with everybody sitting at home, the people that are not losing their jobs and things like that, nobody's also out there spending money. So everybody still has money that they have available to spend. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. You guys all have Jay's information. Jay, if you want, why don't you type your email address and whatever phone number you're comfortable giving in the chat box so everybody can write that down. And then I am going to give you the host so that you can be host. Let me make host. All right, Amy, you should see something that says take host.
Yep.
Now. Okay.
Yep, there it is. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope y'all are all doing really well today. I just wanted to start off with just some positive things that we're sort of seeing. I know that this is sort of a scary time. I know it's a unorthodox time for all of us right now. Things have been ever changing in every single thing that we are doing with what we're seeing with the closings. The one thing I really want to say to you guys is there are some really unique things that are coming out of this. I think we're aligning ourselves more with our communities. We're seeing people that we haven't seen in a while, neighbors that we haven't seen in a while when you're out for your walks, keeping your 6 foot of distance, etc. So I think that there are some positive things. And I think right now, more than ever, we all need to cling to those things. I know many of you are in situations like I am where you can't be around loved ones. We were supposed to spend our spring break down at my mom and dad's home with them this week and are unable to do so because of my mom's an asthmatic. So we can't be around her right now in the effort to try to keep her safe. So I know we're all going through our own little struggles. What I do want to encourage you, though, is closings are still taking place. We are still getting closings done. They're just a little different than we would like them to be. I am a people person. I'm an extrovert. You guys know this about me. Me not getting to see you guys at closing is not easy. I don't enjoy it. I love when you guys come in. I'm a hugger by nature. That's been tough for me, not being able to hug my family and friends as much. So I know this is really difficult and it's different and it's hard for you guys right now. And the one thing I do want to say to you, though, is, again, we are getting closings done. I want to talk to y'all a little bit about some of the stuff Dana and I did this week. Dana and I spent hours back and forth on some COVID stuff that we wrote for y'all this week. just back and forth with Dave and Dana, trying to make sure that you guys had the tools y'all needed this week, going into making sure that we gave you what you needed to protect yourselves and do the best you could to protect your own selves, your own businesses, and your clients, especially your listings. Even if you can't control all of the outcomes, the sellers want to see that you're making some efforts to protect them right now. So we did some things with that. I do want to talk to you about the state of closings and how they're working right now. The biggest thing I would tell you is do not get too hung up in this online closing process. First and foremost, we can do them. And we're happy to accommodate those, like the Zoom, the Microsoft Teams meetings, those types of platforms. And we've done several of them at this point, and they've went really well. The problem with them is they require lender approval. And let me just tell you, most lenders are telling us no. So most of the lenders are saying they are not accepting the online platform. So it would be much like this type of platform. And what it would do would be allow us to interface with your buyer or your seller in this methodology. They have to provide us their proof of ID on the screen and then send us copies of their ID. They have to sign an affidavit. We have to sign an affidavit, and our witness to the transaction has to sign an affidavit, and that all gets recorded with the security deed. However, some lenders do not want to do it. They are not approving us to utilize this platform, and therefore your buyers are still having to come to closing or having to do some form of mail away. Keep in mind that with a mail away closing, it is and has always been the ruling of the State Bar of Georgia that we have to oversee the entire process. And mail aways can get really, really convoluted, and they can get very, very tricky in that I just cannot send a loan package to a buyer under any circumstances. It has to be sent to an attorney or title company in their area. So even if they can't come to closing because of whatever issue they have going on, their fear of coming out in public right now, they're going to have to go to a title company or an attorney in their area to get that done. So keep that in mind. The other thing I want to talk to you about with this is, even if your lender does approve it, I have to have the package in advance, well in advance, so that we can get the package prepared and either emailed, which if we email, they need to expect to print somewhere between 100 and 140 pages on their own home computer printer. Yeah, Christy, I see your face. That's a lot of printing for them. It is. And so our recommendation is that we overnight the package out to them to be able to do this type of interface with them where it is approved. The issue with that is we're having a lot of buyers say, well, I don't want FedEx delivering a package to me right now. I'm a little concerned about that. So they all have all these different avenues of concern when it comes to doing these Zoom type mail out transactions. I am willing to accommodate them in whatever legal way we can do it, an appropriate method that we can do it. I just wanted to give y'all those two hiccups, because the biggest hiccups seem to be that the lenders are not approving this, or a lot of them are not, and then getting the package in a timely manner to get them signed in advance, and then they have to return it. So you have to understand, they sign it, they overnight the package back to us. Once we get it back, we can then have the seller go ahead and sign and move forward with all of our witness, all of our notaries. So it is still wet signatures. We are still getting the original docs that the buyers and sellers have signed back in our hands, and then we place our notary stamp on them with an affidavit that says that we remotely, under the governor's order, were able to do that type of transaction. Okay. One of the other things I want to caution you about with these, also with any of the mail outs right now, we are seeing a lot of delays on UPS and FedEx right now. So the UPS and FedEx delays are causing us to not be able to get packages back in a quick enough time. So we are seeing on even just a regular overnight delay that it's supposed to be back to us tomorrow morning by 8:30. We have seen delays of us not getting them for a day or two, depending on what city they're coming back out of. So I want to give you that information too. Now, if they choose to come to our office to close, I cannot even begin to count the number of closings that I've done with clipboards at the side of someone's car lately, which is totally fine for me. I don't mind doing it. We have people that are uncomfortable coming in, and if they're uncomfortable coming in, I want them to be comfortable signing their loan docs, and we just go stand outside and we do it. The other option is that if they come in, we're asking that only the signing parties come in. Understand that is for their safety and for my staff and my safety as well. I do not want to exclude you ever from a transaction in any way. We've had buyers who have FaceTimed their realtors during the closing. I try to make sure that we call you guys at least before and or after to let you know that everything's going well, so that you know your client is being taken care of. If you want us to still take pictures of your client for the closings, we're happy to do that and send it to you so you can still post that you had a closing. We're happy to help you with that. All of these things are still able to be done as far as the closing process goes. So it's not as difficult as one might think that it is, but it is just a lot of moving parts. I always liken it to sort of the gear shift mechanisms that you see. If one of those come out, then it kind of falls apart and it doesn't work. Just be aware that, you know, we are seeing some inhibitors of being able to get these done via the online platforms, and it mostly comes from whether the lender's going to approve them or not. And different lenders are making their choice, you know, for various reasons. I will tell you, here is my stance. I am not a big advocate for this type of transaction generally, only because our biggest type of situation that we had in the downturn of the market, where people were arguing whether or not they had a right to be foreclosed on or not, is that, I see your comment, Sean, and I'll gladly welcome y'all to tailgate, not a problem. But the biggest advocacy issue that we had were people that were claiming that they didn't actually sign the docs that they signed in order to avoid foreclosure. I cannot even begin to tell you how many cases were filed where they say, I didn't sign the loan docs, as an effort to try to get out of the foreclosure crisis when it was happening. So I think the concern for the lenders in not allowing this comes back to, are we going to see a lot of litigation over these transactions that are done this way out of fear of, are they going to claim that they didn't actually sign the docs and somebody else did? For the record, we are recording our sessions so that we have those as a recordable backup. And we do also have to get the buyer and seller's approval, whoever is on the teleconference with us, their approval to be able to do that as well. So there's a lot of moving parts with it, but we are getting them done. I've done a ton of closings outside. We've had buyers come in and sellers close outside. We have had sort of a drive-through closing type situation, which is not the best, but we've had clients who have literally thanked us profusely for doing it that way. And we are just continuing to work forward on getting your closings done. So we are here, we are working. Most of my staff is working remotely. The great thing about our office is that when we had the downturn of the market with the snow apocalypse, we decided that we were never going to be caught with sort of our pants down in the situation of not being able to work and give you guys what you needed when you were home. So the ladies have taken their phones. They ring just like they're here in the office. They can transfer calls just like they were here with us. I can log in and see what they're doing on their screens. We have done quite a few closings where they're at home working and I'm here doing the closings, and it's worked out really, really well and really smooth. So that's part one. Does anybody have any questions about the closing process, concerns, or questions that you may have that you'd like for me to answer about how we're working through trying to keep everyone safe? The only other thing I will tell you really quickly is before and after every single person comes into the office, we are Lysoling. We are bleach washing every chair, every table, everything down for the clients. And we're not letting buyers and sellers come in at the same time. So let me see. Who had a question? John, you had a question? Are you there, John?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just should we add a day or two extra on our closings for what's going on here, or what's your?
If you know that you have a client that when you're talking with them, and these are conversations you should be having with your client, so you should be having the conversation with your client of, if your lender approves for you to do a teleconference closing, would you prefer to do that right now? And go ahead and have the conversation with the lender now, so that it's not a surprise at the end if your lender doesn't approve it. If the lender doesn't approve it, then there's not really a lot I can do. I can only ask for them. So if the lender's not going to approve it, I would strongly recommend that you go ahead and tell them that, so that they're prepared to come in, so that's not a shock to them. If you are going to do the teleconference closing, I would recommend you add a day or two just to give the lenders a little bit of time in this market to get them done. It's not a big deal. They're pretty simple. but it, it is really a lender preference on whether they're going to, allow us to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for anybody on that part of it? None? Okay. Go ahead.
Question. I have a lot of agents asking me about DA closings. Are you still doing DA closings where they can come in afterwards and pick up their check?
Yes, what we're asking them to do is if they're doing a DA closing, just to call us when they get out front, and we're bringing the checks right out to them. So it's curbside, service at its finest right now. So we'll be happy to take it out to them. We're also sending a lot of checks down to the West Cobb office, into the Paulding office and the various offices around the Atlanta area for the realtors. We're sending those out same day if we can get them funded same day, and taking care of that quickly as well too. So whichever way they prefer, if they want to come by, one of us are just taking it right out to the car for them. Any other questions on that piece of it? Okay, I think Dana has shared with you all the COVID home showing protocol requirements and agreement, and then also the listing forms. I just want to sort of go on and talk to you guys a little bit about that, and I'm pulling this up right now on my computer just so I can read them, and talk to you a little bit about what our thought process was with this and what we are hoping to accomplish with protecting everybody in this, type of environment right now. I think
Amee, are you going to share your screen on that?
I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
There's a little green thing at the bottom of your screen that says share.
Share content. Okay, let's see here. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, hold on one second. I'm going to go out and try to open it. I don't know. I'm on my mobile, and I have it opened on my other. So let me just see if I can do that, and see if that will come
Amee,
up.
if I can take the host back and the documents, and we should still be able to hear you. So
that would be great. That would be great.
All right.
Because I'm trying to work two different things. You guys know this is not my forte, right? Okay, so the first one is the protocol. Dana put all of this out on her Sunday thing, I believe. And if you haven't been using these, I really recommend that you do, and look at these and see what all she is putting out there for you, because there is a lot of really amazing information that is going out each week, more so than I see anywhere else being, displayed fully for your use. So I want to kind of go over the protocol piece of it and talk to you about that first. It is a form that allows you to send to the buyer. And if you go to can all of you see that? Is everybody seeing the first piece of this? There's two parts to this. The first one is prior to the showing of any home listed at whatever the address is, that the buyer's agent and the buyer agree to strictly adhere to the protocol, okay? All of the scheduling of showings are to be by appointment only, and it asks that they check in FMLS or Georgia MLS for the appropriate seller requirement for how to set up a showing appointment. I am right now seeing a lot of sellers saying, I want a phone call and I want to know before anyone comes in my home. And then I have other sellers who are saying, we don't mind showing time because we get a notice. We just don't want them to be able to come 20 minutes or so in advance. They want a time set that they have a minimum turn time to be able to get out of the house for their home to be shown. For example, I had a seller yesterday said that he wanted to make sure that he had a 2 to 3 hour window before his home was shown. So those are all things that you guys have to work through. One of the things is it restricts the number of buyers coming into the listing. So first and foremost, that the buyer has reviewed this agreement and signed it and returned it to the listing agent. That's number one. That where it's applicable, the buyer has already reviewed the seller disclosure and that they have been pre-approved by a lender licensed to transact mortgage business in the state of Georgia. Okay. That's the first and the very first part, because you certainly don't want anyone coming in to the property that isn't even approved right now in this environment. That's not going to give the sellers a lot of comfort. And where we have a seller's disclosure, Dana and I were pretty adamant about this piece of it. Go on and give them the seller's disclosure. Put it in FMLS or Georgia MLS or wherever you need to put it. And the reason is that way when they do it'll cut, we hope, cut down on the number of times the buyers have to come to the property. In an effort for them to go ahead and look at those disclosure items while they're there the first time. Now, let's move down to the second piece, and this is part of the listing agent issue that you're going to be facing with your sellers. So we have put out the CDC recommendations for not being around people who have certain underlying criteria. For example, we are asking that people who have traveled outside the country in the last 14 days, that they've at least quarantined themselves for 14 days, and they're outside of that 14-day period, and they're not running a fever. If they have run a fever in the last 14 days, you're asking that they not enter the home. If they've knowingly been in contact with anyone infected with COVID-19, or they have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and not been labeled by a physician as recovered, or they have participated in any high-risk behavior that would put them at greater risk of contracting COVID-19, such as going into large crowds, being around more than 10 people, not less than 6 foot apart, all the criteria that we have sort of had beaten into our heads over the last few weeks. Now, here's the part that I want you guys to really pay attention to. One of the CDC things that you aren't hearing a lot about is the entering of homes with shoes on. So we've added that. We're asking that they remove their shoes to walk through the home, that they not use the bathrooms in the home for any reason whatsoever. And here's one of the things you're going to have to stress to your sellers. They need to leave all of the doors in the home open. If you don't want the buyers touching the property or touching a lot of stuff in the home, the bedroom doors need to be open. The laundry room door needs to be open. If they have animals, my best suggestion is kennel those animals in the garage for the time being. Put them in kennels. So they have to go out and buy a kennel. They just have to go out and buy a kennel. If it makes them uncomfortable for their dog or pet not to be, put in something, or to, for them not to be put away. I've always said this for years. I don't know why people lock a dog into a room when they have a listing and they know people are coming. Why not put them in a kennel where the potential home buyer can see all of the home? So that is something that I would recommend they do. Leaving the doors open is just an easy way for the buyers to be able to come in, touch as few surfaces as possible, and leave their sort of print, if you will, on the property as little as possible, in an effort to keep everybody, clean. Now, does this mean that the seller is not going to have to go home and probably Lysol and bleach down their home? No, it does not. But is this helping you be able to make the sellers understand that you're doing what you can to help keep them protected? Yes. Are you able to protect them at all costs? Absolutely not. There's no way that you possibly could do that. But this is just to give them some assurance that you're asking the buyers this and that they're signing off on it, and they understand that they've signed off on it. So the last part here is that all the buyers and all the potential buyers and buyers agents acknowledge that failure to comply may result in liability. We're already starting to see case issues coming out of this. I don't know if y'all are aware of the gentleman in Ohio, the bus driver who contracted COVID. His family is most assuredly going to be filing a lawsuit on their situation. Buyer and buyer's agent agree to hold harmless the listing broker and affiliated licensees for any failure to strictly comply with all terms as listed herein. All parties agree to indemnify and hold buyer's agent and brokerage harmless from I'm sorry, that should be seller's agent. And I apologize. Dana, we need to correct that. I just caught that.
Okay.
Seller's agent and brokerage harmless from and against all claims, injury suits, illnesses arising from out of the party's decision with respect to the above showing protocol. So we're trying to put something out there that it negates any liability that you or your brokerage may have. You can't control what other people are doing, but what we don't want to do is get you guys caught up in some lawsuit because you should have had a protocol in place. And that's all this is trying to do is prevent. Look, we did everything we could to prevent it. People still wanted to see homes and the sellers still wanted to sell theirs. And look, we even had them sign a form for it. Okay. So that is the one thing that I would strongly encourage you to have signed and have done. And that would help at least alleviate potential claims. Now, the next document we have is the exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement addendum. We wrote this for you so that it would have the ability to be able to be just adopted right into your contract, and you just attach it as an addendum. So basically all it's doing is that they're not relying on any of your advice. They're doing what they can to keep themselves, for the buyer that they're doing what they can to keep themselves protected and safe. Again, it sets out the main 5 issues that the CDC has put out there. that we're telling even the buyers, look, don't use the bathrooms in the properties, that you view for personal matters for any reasons whatsoever, and that you don't touch the surfaces, the door handles, all of that. I have a couple of realtors that when they're meeting them at the property, they're taking bleach wipes and giving each of the buyer bleach wipes so that they can open the doors if they need to. If they're shut, why they would be shut in this environment, I'm not sure. But if they are, just to kind of help them stay safe. There are very few available ways to be able to buy gloves and masks right now, but if your buyers have them, I would recommend they use them going in and out of homes. Look, we don't know what someone else has been exposed to, and we don't know what other people are doing to keep themselves safe. We hope that they're doing as much as we all each individually are doing. But there are a lot of people out there not adhering to the rules and don't care about them, don't believe COVID's a real thing, all of those wonderful things that they're saying. But we can only do what we can do. So this is just an effort to try to help you protect yourself and to protect your brokerage as much as possible should something arise. I will tell you, I do think there will be a lot of lawsuits that come out of this. From the point of this COVID-19 situation, I think there's going to be a lot of lawsuits that arise in the future from personal liability type situations and things like that. So I'm saying to you, let's use the forms, try to protect yourself, try to protect your brokerage at this point. It doesn't hurt to add it in there. It's not going to do anything but try to protect you. Should somebody say, you showed me a property that somebody in there was sick and you didn't take the proper protocol or measures. I think most brokerages are going to this from what I'm seeing. Dana, is that what you're seeing as well? That's what I'm seeing too, is that most of them have some platform. So, there it is, and there you have it. I'd like to see if any of you have any questions on either of these two forms that you would like to ask either Dana or I on while you have us captive.
Sabrina asked Amee, I purchased my seller's shoe covers. Is this okay?
Sure, as long as they are, I don't see anything wrong with it as long as they're wearing them. I still would not recommend that they leave their shoes on. It's just simply because it's on the CDC site and it's a request by the CDC not to wear your shoes inside your home. And I've seen a lot of situations where realtors have texted me, no shoes inside. But does it hurt for them to wear them with their socks or whatever on? No, because it's probably protecting them a little bit. They're your buyers as they're entering various homes. I would just make sure that if you're going to give them shoe covers, that they don't wear the same shoe covers in and out of every home, because if one has it, then you're tracking it in and out of the other homes. And again, you can never be careful.
Let me ask this, because when I see that, I think I've got a basket of shoe covers that I put in the house. And if those are reused by someone else, then you're getting their germs potentially on you. So it has to be one use, single use and go, as opposed to just leaving a basket of shoe covers for people to use. Is that?
Yes. And
right?
Actually, that is what the CDC recommends. And this is a big issue that a lot of the hospitals are getting into, where they're being asked to reuse masks and reuse shoe covers and things. And it's becoming a pretty significant debate on whether that's acceptable or not. Right now, I would recommend that if you're going to put them out, you do one-time use, ask them to take them with them and throw them in the trash. Maybe if you have a trash can, right by the door, ask them to throw them in there so they can all be bagged up when they, return home. That might be the way to do it.
Yeah, that's what she's doing. She's leaving a trash can outside the door, because I know I've shown houses and, somebody might have a sign that says no shoes, and I have a buyer be like, I'm not taking my shoes off. Mm-hmm. So I figured the shoe covers would help. And she has a trash can with a garbage bag in it right outside the door.
And that is perfectly acceptable. Look, these are the seller's homes. They have the right to set the protocol for what they will tolerate in their homes. And many of you have heard me talk about this story where the buyers opened the bottle of wine at the seller's home and drank it. And so, the sellers have the right to set whatever rules they want the buyers to abide by. And the buyers have the right to say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'll buy something else. So it's not like any other part of the negotiate. It's not unlike any other part of the negotiation. But I am seeing more and more sellers set these types of requirements out. And the one thing that you have to be incredibly careful with is if you are with these buyers and the sellers have posted this and your buyer refuses to abide by it, you should not allow them into the home. because there are a lot of video cameras inside of these homes right now. And what I don't want is for you to have a seller call and saying, I'm going to sue your brokerage because you allowed them in the home and you saw my posting and you still went in anyway with your shoes on. So that is the one thing I would say to you is if you have a seller who has that posted, or you know that they do not, and you've signed a form like this for another brokerage, then you need to say to your buyers, then we can't view this home if you refuse to take your shoes off, because I can't be responsible for that. Okay? Does that help a little bit, everyone? Do y'all understand where we're coming from on this? Does everybody see? Yeah, okay. I'm seeing shaking heads from some of you. That's about all I can see right now. Does anyone else have any other question for me on any of these topics whatsoever that you'd like for me to answer?
Hey, Amy, I just thinking about the shoe thing, and, you know, you take your shoes off from house to house and this stuff gets on the bottom of your socks and you're putting your shoes back on. What kind of liability is that creating for the seller?
Well, I mean, this is the whole thing, is you can't prevent everything. This is what we're talking about. If you take the chance of walking into Kroger or Publix, you're going to get that on the bottom of your shoes. Now, I will tell you what we are doing at our home is we're taking all of our shoes off in the garage and we're spraying them with Lysol. There's a can of Lysol right by my back door. I would recommend that you maybe tell your buyers, hey, listen, I'm going to suggest that you bring a can of Lysol with you. Let them bring their own stuff with them. And spray their feet down, you know, before they put their feet back in their shoes. I'm not a medical expert. I can only tell you there are just some common sense approaches that they can take for this. And at some point, this isn't your responsibility other than to do the part that you can do, which is advise them that, hey, here's the protocol. And then anything else that happens after that, it's their responsibility to take some responsibility to protect their own selves in going in and out of these homes. I think this is why we're seeing first of all, we're seeing a lot of people get very bored right now. And they're like, oh, let's go look at a house. So I am seeing some of that. But I'm also seeing a lot of buyers who are coming out of the market because they don't want to be going into other people's homes right now. And that is where we're also seeing a lot of sellers say, we want to sort of quote unquote pause our listings for the moment until some of this dies down, and then we'll relist a little bit later because they're not wanting people in and out of their home, because they, like the rest of us, acknowledge we can't prevent 100% of this. But can you do what you can do to be the best advocate for your client? Yes. But it's incumbent upon your sellers and their and the buyers to do what they need to do to proceed forward.
I think also, Amy, along those lines, you guys as agents, be very careful. There's so much information out there. Be very careful when a buyer or a seller asks you those kinds of questions. Well, what about getting it on my socks, so forth and so on. Medical experts, some of the medical experts don't know. You've got to couch your terms just in terms of your position as an agent showing property and as an agent listing property. You just have to say, per the showing protocol, this is what it says. Do not put yourself out there as a medical expert or or even say, this is what I heard. There's so much misinformation out there. And even among the medical professionals, there's a variation of how this is spread, how long this virus lives on inanimate objects. Is soap better than antibacterial wipes? If it's a virus, some are saying the antibacterial wipes are totally useless. You just need, there was one study that came out that said that the outer edge of this virus protein molecule is fat. And so good old fashioned soap, especially Dawn, works better than anything else. So just be very careful in your communication with a public person in showing and listing property, what you say about the spread of getting sick, either a buyer sharing it accidentally with a seller or a seller accidentally infecting a buyer. Be very, very careful how you talk about that.
And I would just encourage you that if they're asking the questions, just like Herb and I were just saying, is if they're asking you these questions of how to protect myself, refer them back to the CDC website. That's the best thing you can do, because you can say, look, all I can tell you is like they're saying do this, and go to the CDC website. You need to make sure that you're protecting yourself. But again, I do not think it is your responsibility to provide all of this stuff like Lysol and bleach wipes and all of these things for your clients. Now, do you want to do it as a good faith gesture and you can? Wonderful. But if you're asking for people to take their shoes off when they're entering a property to keep them from tracking things from one place to another, then you need to be aware that them doing that at multiple homes. But look, even if they don't do it and they go from home to home to home looking for multiple homes, they could be potentially doing that, tracking things from one place to another. I don't know. I'm not a medical expert. I don't know how it's really spread, to be honest with you. I hear it's airborne. I hear it's not. I hear it's this. I hear it's not. Like Dana said, you know, it lives on one surface 10 days, on another surface 3. I don't know what is true and what is not with this, but we do have to do our part to make sure that we are trying to protect the clients that we have that are going in and out of these homes and the clients that we have that live in these homes. And the only way that we can do that is to at least have a written protocol to ask them to abide by. That's it.
Awesome.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope to see you all very, very soon. You're welcome to come. If your clients are going to sign out in the parking lot, you're welcome to come. We have a lot of the realtors that are coming and waiting and taking pictures after the closings are over. So you're welcome to do all of those normal things. Just we are actually looking at putting some tables outside as well to help accommodate some of this too. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope to see you guys soon. And virtual hugs to all of y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So much. Okay, you guys, just a couple comments about what Maximum One has going on. The Paulton office does not have full-time staff until May, so we're changing that mailing address to the West Cobb office. Kim Murray, the MXGA compliance broker, is going to be doing all compliance, even if you are a realtor. So she'll be doing the compliance for MXGR and MXGA. The Douglasville office does not have full-time staff, and the Powell Ferry office only has full-time staff from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. So same thing, we're trying to protect you guys and our staff from limiting the number of people that are coming in and out of the offices. But we are still processing DAs. Your contracts still have to be compliant and complete. Please take use of the support email. The Rockstars group on Facebook has been a tremendous source of help and a great resource for everybody. So please hop on that. And I really don't have anything else to say. Did you guys like doing this virtually? It worked out better than I thought. So,
hey, Dana, real quick, Laura had asked a question on the chat. I think Sean answered it for her, but she was asking about banks not approving loans over $400,000, a $400,000 loan amount. I'm pretty sure that's in reference to jumbo loans, and that's certainly a market that we're seeing dry up. We still have a home for jumbo financing. I don't think we have a 5% down option right this second. I think that's going to be a 10% down loan at this point. But there's always the opportunity to do there's still some banks out there doing second mortgages. So you could do a first and a second, and the total combined loan amount go over the $510,000 conforming loan limit. So just some ideas or suggestions there. But yes, Laura, that is an issue, but hopefully it's not again, hopefully it's something that we can accommodate those customers buying the more expensive houses.
Jay, I have one more question, and it might be specific to jumbo loan, but just in general, we do have an agent. Jumbo loan financing did dry up. There was another option where the buyer could put down a bigger down payment, but given everything going on, the buyer wanted to keep his cash and not put it into the property. What they have done is the buyer and the seller have signed an amendment to extend the contract for 30 days. What are your thoughts as a lender on a time frame under which to extend some of these contracts? Like, will some of these, will the interest rate the credit score requirement go back down as quickly as it has gone up? And what do you foresee, from your experience? There's really nobody's experience for this, but what is your suggestion about maybe extending contracts?
Good question. Yeah, obviously experience is thrown out the window unless you know someone who lived through the last pandemic. The influenza pandemic of like 1908 or something. I don't think any type of standard contract extension is going to have enough time in it to see any appreciable change in the mortgage industry at this point. And we're talking extending what, 30 days, maybe 45 days. I think we're a minimum of 6 months out to really see how that, because the investors, what's happened is the servicers and the investors have pulled back because they don't know how many people are going to apply and get approved for this forbearance. They don't know how that's going to work. They're even telling us that it's creating a whole nother problem. They're telling the servicers that they can't report negative information on the credit reports. So like through the Fair Credit Reporting Act and all that, they can't report negative information, but they also can't report that they've received the payment. And there's no other option on credit reports. You either received the payment or you didn't, and it's yes or no, like they click a button. So we don't even know how this information is going to figure out, like when customers do it, and how it's going to show up on credit reports based off what the government's telling us and what the mechanisms are in place to actually apply it. So to think that we're going to get back to normal in 30 days, I mean, I love it. And by all means, let's all pray and agree together that that's what happens. But realistically, I think we're every bit of 6 months before we see how this siphons through the system and how the total system reacts to it. So I think it's kind of a shot in the dark, or really hoping against hope that we're going to see something come back to normal in what would be a typical contract extension time frame.
All right, everybody. I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much for participating. Jay, thank you. Amy's logged off, but thank Amee so much. Jay and Amee are both available to you guys. Again, I created a whole folder on the reference section of Paperless Pipeline called COVID-19 forms. It has those 2 forms Amee was talking about. I'll correct that one today. It's got the COVID-19 GAR special stipulation. It's got the latest Georgia executive order. It's got the Homeland Security list of critical infrastructure businesses. It's got a ton of information on there. There is also a lot of support and information on GAR's website and NAR's website. And I share as much as I can in the Sunday emails. And the blog, if you go to eagentweb.com and click on the blog tile, that's all the email put on that. It's up to date except for last week's. I got to put that up there. So thank you guys so much. Hang in there. Help our buyers and sellers. This is a great time to foster your leads, generate your leads, stay in communication with them, and get everything ready, because people are tired of being at home and people still need to move. And I think once we get the release in general, people are going to go out and are going to need to buy and sell homes. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
Jay.
I've
Thanks,
recorded
everybody.
this. I'm going to try and put it up on the Rockstars page, but I got to play with it. So don't hold your breath, but hopefully we'll get it done.
Okay.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys.
Bye.
Bye.